Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to today's episode of Talking Point. I'm your host, Syed Neaz Ahmed. In our studios today, we have a very distinguished guest from Dhaka, Bangladesh, Dr. Mahmudur Rahman, a professor of medicine. He is trust coordinator of Dhaka Community Hospital Trust. It's a 500-bed hospital. And to quote something from their website, it's a trust-owned, private, non-profit, self-financed organization for low-income, underprivileged people. It was established in 1988. Dr. Rahman, don't you think that this is a very pregnant sentence? It has got a lot of meanings and a lot of qualifications, like it's a trust-owned, it's non-profit, it's private, it's self-financed, and it's supposed to reach to the millions of underprivileged, non-affluent people of Bangladesh. By the way, that was a question, but welcome to the show and making good time for us today in London. I know that you're here on a very short visit and you've been to Birmingham. Today you returned from there a couple of hours ago. It was so kind of you that you could manage it despite the very bad weather that we have had today. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you for your kindness and the kind words and having me in your show. The thing you said about us previously, that is our vision for this hospital actually.
Right.
I myself, when I graduated in 1966 and came to this country in 67 for higher education and worked in national service for 10-15 years.
Which is called NHS.
In NHS. And working here, I realized that there's a lot of other things apart from only being a doctor and seeing a patient.
Right.
A doctor can do a lot more things which are health related basically, but at the same time it goes beyond health as such. So during our time as medical students, those days we were also a little bit involved in the Bangladeshi movement.
The liberation movement.
Liberation movement as well, but the liberation movement didn't took up that much in 1960s.
Yeah.
But the sentiments were just growing.
It was warming up.
Warming up. So when we left Dhaka, that time is Pakistan, it was a bit difficult for a doctor to come out because in West Pakistan there's great disparity between doctors. The West Pakistani boys could come easily, but to leave Bangladesh, and now Bangladesh, East Pakistan those days, if you have to go out of Bangladesh, East Pakistan those days as a doctor, you have to have a lot of government permissions and other things.
There are hurdles. You have to get the permission.
And
there were NOCs
and a lot of things. So some of us tried to manage to came here as students and without disclosing their identity as a doctor or things like that. But I was a little bit privileged. I got a work permit somehow. I managed and landed here in January 77.
Yes, a lot of people had come on work permit those days.
And I got myself registered with British Medical Council.
BMA, is it?
British Medical Council.
Right.
BMC. Get registration to work here, and I applied for jobs. But those days also it was a bit difficult to get a first job for a overseas doctor.
You didn't have to go through a test or something?
Not those days, it was not necessary because our degree was recognized. Our training was also recognized those days. So I took up a non-paid job at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary for a few months, just to get acquainted with the British way of medicine and practices here. And there was a unit I used to work there, was a very famous person called Professor Osler. And he was a very fatherly type of man. And he advised me that, look, you have come here for your membership exam. It is a British exam. So you must know British medicine. So he advised me that
it was the Royal College of Medicine that you wanted the membership.
And that was the time the highest professional qualification for us in medicine.
Right.
And there's a Royal College of Surgery as well. But those days there's not Royal College of Gynecology. It came later.
It came later, yes.
So he advised me, Professor Osler advised me that you should take up a job And he said, I'll be very glad to be your referee.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for a job, and my first job was in York
Mm-hmm.
as a house officer in medicine and allied subjects. It was chest medicine as well. So after that, working there for about a year, I went to Cardiff to do my diploma in chest medicine in University of Cardiff, University of Wales.
Mm-hmm.
And
Those
then
days there were no restriction on foreign doctors coming here and getting admitted to professional courses or working in the hospitals?
not as such, because those days they needed doctor here.
Mm-hmm,
There's
mm-hmm.
a paucity
And the
of-
bond of Commonwealth was much stronger.
much stronger. The life was much easier those days. And
So you went to Cardiff.
So I went to Cardiff. I did my diploma in chest medicine, and then came back to general medicine again, and took up a job in Middlesbrough.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked.
This
most
was
of-
until what, 68, 69?
60. No, that was about 68, and then I stayed there for some time,
Mm-hmm.
and then I moved to Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent most of my time in Hartford area, in Hartford,
A little away from London.
little area from in Hartford County Hospital, then Queen Elizabeth II Hospital there, places like that. But by that time, it was a lot of things happened back home.
Yes.
We went to War of Liberation, and in London, in England, we formed Bangladesh Medical Council those days. We sent a lot of people, left England, went to front areas to fight for Bangladeshi
And also to provide medical
medical
facilities to the
and,
wounded soldiers.
We formed this Bangladesh Medical Association in London, and is to provide a lot of things from here.
So you established Bangladesh Medical Association before the establishment of Bangladesh.
Yes,
Great.
that's true. And when 71 happened, Bangladesh became a independent country. We went back to our studies again.
You were still in London at that time.
At that time, I didn't get my membership yet.
Mhm, mhm.
Then we got back to our studies,
Mhm.
finished our membership quickly. And by 77, 78, I got my membership in 74.
Mhm,
And after a couple of years, my wife also qualified from here.
mhm.
And we decided that we should go back home because it is our country and they need us. With that sort of mentality, we went
Right,
home.
see. Yeah, a lot of people felt that way
At
at that
those
time. Yes.
yes. So when we went back home, we didn't have much of idea what we were going to do, apart from our profession. We were
Mhm,
professionally
mhm,
skilled people those days. So when I landed in Dhaka, after a few weeks, I was asked to join in PG Hospital as the associate professor of medicine there.
Mhm,
But when I went for taking the job,
mhm.
it clicked me that possibly it is not a very good thing I'm doing, because something clicked me that those days that possibly there's a lot of inner current of politics there, which may not suit me in government jobs.
Right.
So I was in two minds, what should I do? So for a little while, for 2 years, I left Dhaka and came to Dubai to work as a specialist physician there.
Mhm, mhm.
Basically, to give me some time to think back what I'm going to do in future. Then after 2 years, again I went back.
Right.
And this time, myself and my wife decided that we should not be a gypsy anymore. We should stick to Bangladesh and we should start working here. So instead of taking a government job, I decided to join a small hospital in downtown called National Hospital. It was in Shadarghat.
Mhm.
It was a very small hospital of 40 beds. It established during the time of non-cooperation movement. There's a lot of Swadeshi
Mhm.
institutes those days, and Dhaka National Hospital was one of them.
Yeah, it's an old one, yes, isn't it?
So myself and one of my senior colleagues by the name of Dr. Mahmudur Rahman, we tried to build it up with some national pass doctors.
Mhm.
And gradually, working there, by 1990, we built it up to a 500-bedded hospital.
Great.
And it was a great opportunity for me to see the health service, how we can work in Bangladesh and what else we can offer apart from just being a doctor.
So did this idea of establishing a trust came?
So then a colleague of mine, who is a couple of years junior to me, by the name of Professor Qazi Kamruzzzaman, is a surgeon. I met him during the War of Liberation actually in London. So we two, and another friend of us, which possibly you know, by the name of Dr. Jafrullah Chaudhary.
Yeah, that distinguished person was on that chair once,
So
not many days ago.
we were all very close. So first in 71, 72, Jafrullah started Ganashastra Kendra in Sabha, where we are also very actively involved.
Right.
But soon there was some differences in opinion because Ganashastra Kendra started becoming a so-called NGO, donor-dependent organization of various activities. And there are a lot of NGOs doing very good work, and Jafrullah also did a lot of good very work in GK. But we decided that we should not be an NGO. We should do something which should be sustainable by itself and should run by the community for which it is which are going to establish it. So myself and Dr. Zaman decided what we can do.
Right.
So we found out that in Dhaka there's a great lower middle class community which are in majority, and they are very much deprived of health services, particularly of tertiary care. The government services are not adequate to cater for them. The private hospitals, those days there were not very many, but still their price was so high they couldn't afford it. So we thought, can we make a experiment with a not-profit hospital, but people will have to pay for it, but how can we make it affordable for them?
Right.
So with that idea...
That money has to be subsidized from somewhere.
Yes, but people should pay for it.
Yeah.
So we said there's nothing free, there's no free lunch. You have to pay for it, but we'll try to make it affordable. We talked to the community there in Malibag, Malibag Chaudhary Para, which is not a very affluent community, which is a middle and lower middle class community in those days. And we rented a small house with 22-bedded hospital. We started it. And
did you buy the house or did
no,
you rent
we just
it?
rented it. And we formed a trust of 6 members, composed of Dr. Qazi Kamruzzzaman as chairman, myself as coordinator, and 2 other lady doctors, Mahmudur Rahman and Rahima Ali, and Mr. Syed Rahman, who was Oxfam country representative, just retired, and another gentleman who retired from government service, Qazi Mahmudur Rahman. So there are 6 members trust.
But I believe that those 6 members are still there.
Still there. We're still that trust, and there's no addition, and nobody left it yet.
That's good news.
And one experience we had when we were establishing the Dhaka National Hospital, that it was government finance. So the change of government, the change of political environment, and they have to interfere. So we couldn't work freely. So we decided to have a trust which would be free of politics, political influence, and free of government.
Well, Dr. Mahmudur Rahman, we have unfortunately come to the end of this segment. And when we come back, we'll continue with this very interesting discussion with you. And it is really interesting that you have been able to establish a 500-bed hospital in the middle of the city where it is needed, not in Savar or not in other far-off places.
I'll come back to you because why we established in
Right.
Dhaka, there's some points for that as well.
Thank you very much for being with us. So we'll take a commercial break, and when we come back, this interesting discussion will be on the air again. Thank you. Don't go away.
আপনারা দেখছেন টকিং পয়েন্ট, সৌজন্যে মাহবুব এন্ড কো অ্যাকাউন্টেন্টস।